Okay, I'd like to call tonight's Board of Commissioner workshop meeting to order. If we could all please stand for a pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, item number 1 on our list tonight, East Texas Road Public Sewer Extension.
Yeah, gentlemen, we wanted to get something on your radar as we've been working through internally, both with Zach Graves, SEO, who's here this evening, as well as Joe Nolan, CKS Engineers. We're looking at an area of East Texas Road on the easternly portion of the township that currently lacks sewer service. There are several residences in the area, nothing over like 20 places at this point. This got brought on as we looked at potential malfunctions for systems in the area, things that we were approached as a township on, how we could potentially look long-term at sewering the area. When we had Zach and Joe kind of look at it and they're going to review it, Joe has a presentation. We actually looked in 2 phases. One is this current section. The second is an area that's split between Lower Macungie and Salisbury Township, development that went in the 60-ish era, 70-ish era, that has on-lot systems. We thought while we were looking at this component of East Texas, we should probably start as a phase 2 to look in that area. So I'll let them jump in here, but that's a little bit of the background on where we are. Wanted to get it in front of the board. At this point, nothing pressing because you'll see there's some budgetary numbers that we're gonna potentially review and the impact on homeowners at some point. So just wanted to get it early so you know that we've been in process and to get some feedback or comments. So Joe, if you could, please.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Can Renee or who's ever there allow my screen?
Working on it.
Okay.
Should be into that more.
You should be able to share. I'll make him go to participant. Up top.
You should be all set, Joe.
Okay. You got me now?
Yeah, you're a co-host, so you should be able to share.
Okay. Do you see what's up on the screen?
No.
Okay, hold on.
Never fails. Renee goes away when we need to do actual computer stuff.
I'm just glad Nate's here tonight, so I don't get blamed.
So we're going to blame you anyway.
That's all right.
Let me see.
No, there it is.
There it is.
There you go, Joe.
You got it now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
Nate, can you close the chat on the right-hand side?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right there. Thank you.
Yeah, it's not working. It's still saying that disabled participant screen sharing. Do you have me up there?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on. We see your desktop.
We see your desktop.
Okay, hold on. Let me put this back up. You got it now?
There you go.
Yep, just switch to full view on slideshow or run slideshow and we'll have the whole
Okay.
thing.
Got it?
Good to
Yes.
go.
Okay, good. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to go over my preliminary estimate for the ability to provide public sewers to the East Texas Road area. I've been working with Zach on this for quite a few months now, and this will be my initial assessment. This is a map showing all the sewer districts in the township. You can see over here in this corner where my cursor is, there's an area that's not designated to be in a sewer area. That's because there's no sewers there. This is an aerial of that particular area. This is East Texas Avenue here. And this is Country Home Acres, the development that Bruce has briefly described. And the unique feature of this property is that it's bisected by the boundary between Salisbury Township and Lower Macungie Township. I believe there's 83 homes in this development. 67 are currently on lot sewer systems, and 31 properties are in Lower Macungie, and the balance is in Salisbury Township. The initial phase, which Bruce talked about, is phase 1, which are the 14 houses along East Texas Road, and that's what this presentation will focus on. Phase 2, we're looking at separately, but phase 1 is the one with the most priority. We first looked at the reason why wasn't this area sewered, and it came to, was obvious very quickly. The reason is elevation and topography. You can see here the high point, the intersection of Fish Hatchery and East Texas is 442. That's the elevation based on Google Earth. At this end of East Texas Avenue, it's 411, it's 385 in the back, and 406. So everything flows away from the closest public sewer, which is along Fish Hatchery Road. So therefore, we had to look at alternative ways of providing public sewer. Basically, two options. One is gravity sewers and a pump station, and the second is a low pressure sewer system. And a low pressure sewer system is a series of small diameter piping, 2.5, 3 inches in most cases, which is under pressure from individual grinder pumps on each individual property. This is used primarily in areas where gravity is not an option, and pump stations are either not desired or impractical. In looking at the two options, there's a big difference in cost. We've looked at gravity sewers and low pressure systems in many different municipalities, and a low pressure sewer system, it basically comes in total cost about 25% less than a gravity sewer system with a pump station. The negatives with the gravity system is the pipes usually have to be installed 8 to 10 foot deep, which creates significant disturbance during construction. A new pumping station is a new sewer facility, which I know from working with the township, Bruce would rather not have any new pumping stations owned and operated by the township. This would require a new force main, and if a pump station was constructed, obviously someone would have to own it, someone would have to operate it, and someone would have to maintain it. This option causes the most disturbance and is the most costly. The low pressure system, as I said, is composed of small diameter pressure piping. That piping needs to be installed only 3 to 4 foot deep. Grade is not a problem since the flow in the pipe is under pressure, so there's no need for gravity or slope. Individual grinder pumps would be installed on each property. Each owner of the property would own and operate the pumping station. And we've done these before in numerous municipalities. And quite frankly, the biggest thing that needs to be addressed is to educate the owners on the concept of a grinder pump. You really have to look at it like it's another appliance. It's like your refrigerator, or it's like your stove. It operates, but it does require maintenance, and it requires replacement at some point, 15, 20 years out. In this case, the township would own the mains in the street, but the individual property owners would own their own grinder pumps and would be responsible from the shutoff valve at the curb to the property. This is the least disturbance because installing small diameter pressure mains only needs, as I said, 3 to 4 foot deep, and you can actually do this with directional drilling. Many people, contractors, use directional drilling during this installation, which causes the least amount of disturbance. To give you an idea of what this would look like, you see here a sketch of a house wall, and you see a grinder pump, drawing of a grinder pump. Flow would come from the existing sewer lateral in the house into the grinder pump. There'd be a pump within that facility, which would then grind the matter which is entered into the pump station, and that would be pumped into a low pressure force main, which would connect to the low pressure force main that the township would construct in the street. This is a little more detail on that same configuration, but this gives you more indication of the components that are involved in the pump station. It gives you a cut view of what it would look like inside, and all of the features that are required in conjunction with installing gravity pump, or a grinder pump on each resident's property. This is an overview of the area that we looked at in the aerial that I talked about. You can see here is the municipal boundary. Phase 1, which is what we're talking about tonight, are the 14 properties along East Texas Avenue. Phase 2, which we'll look at in the future, is the orange colored areas on the map. We would construct a low pressure main running from the end of East Texas, where my cursor is now, and we install a section down at Pressler as well, just to pick up those couple of properties there. This would connect to the existing manhole at the intersection of Fish Hatchery and East Texas, and from there would flow by gravity into the township's current wastewater system. The preliminary cost estimate for constructing this sewer main, or low pressure sewer main in East Texas Road is shown here in Table 1. I believe you probably have the actual letter report that I did as well, which is, this table is taken right from that letter report. And based on construction costs from recently constructed projects and all of the specific components that would be required to construct the system, we were talking about a construction cost of approximately $265,000. You add in engineering, construction, and we threw in some contingencies. You're talking about $318,000 to construct the main in the street and the 14 laterals with connections that would run from the main to the property line, and that there would be a shutoff valve at that point. That's what the township would initially construct. Now, the cost implications of this would need to be considered. There are different options for how it would be funded. The township would, in all probability, take on the burden of financing the initial construction to get the project completed. And then the township would have the option of recouping that cost through various methods. One would be adding it to a tapping fee for that particular run of 14 units, or the other would be to prepare an assessment for each property owner, which would be assessed against the property, and then the homeowner would then be responsible for the additional costs to hook up the sewers. Based on the 14 properties, the initial assessment or tapping fee component, depending on what the township would decide, would be $22,730. That's for the main and the street and all of the laterals. When each property owner decided to connect, here are the costs to install a pump station. The grinder pump would need to be installed, would need to be a force main from the grinder pump to the point of connection in the main on East Texas Road. The sewer, the existing on-lot system would need to be abandoned, and that has to be done in accordance with DEP regulations. And then, of course, would be the tapping fee, which we currently have. And this is based on the different colors in the map that I showed you initially. CKS Engineers has been updating the tapping fees routinely. And talking to Zach, this would probably be added to District 1B, which means the tapping fee for the township would be $2,850. The total additional cost that the homeowner would have to incur is $1,280, $850. The total cost to each property owner, when everyone's said and done, it would be $35,580. So that is the potential cost to the property owners. Obviously, the project would have to be bid. My cost, I always keep on the high side, so there's no surprises when the project is bid. So I think these costs are pretty reasonable to assume that they would not be exceeded with the construction project. Grinder pump, each lot will have its own unique features, which we haven't gotten down to that detail yet. You know, depending, you have to locate the grinder pump on the lot depending on where the pipe comes out of your basement wall. So that would have to be fine-tuned through an individual property survey if the township decides to proceed further at this point. So here's just some things I put on the presentation for consideration by project financing. As I said, the township would provide the initial funding and construct the force main in East Texas Road. The project cost could be divided by 14 homeowners in phase 1, and that cost is table 2 showed is $22,730. Typically, there are 2 options to retain that cost, or get that return from the property owner. One is to assess each property for their share of the cost. The homeowners would then have to pay that assessment based on an agreement that the township would need to investigate and come up with. Or we could set up a new sewer district and include those costs in the tapping fee. So I've done it both ways. We've gone through in lower or in Worcester Township, we constructed a low pressure system for 79 homes, and the township chose to go the assessment route, and the township actually assisted with providing financing for the homeowners as well. So the decision would also have to be made, and this could be part of the ordinance that the township would need to pass. Are you going to require everyone to hook up immediately, or are you going to allow each property owner to hook up either when their existing system fails or when the house is sold or conveyed to another party? So they would be trigger points. So as I said, there's numerous options available to the township for consideration. Obviously, David would have to be involved in that, and I'm sure he's familiar with this concept. So these again would be need to discuss with the property owners at some point, just to give them an idea of what potential costs we're talking about, and what kind of ideas the township had for paying for these costs. That's it. I tried to keep it short, and I know I presented a lot of information, but again, if you do have the letter that I prepared dated July 3rd, you can review that, and I'd be happy to answer any questions now, or if you do have questions that you want to provide to Bruce or Zach, I can answer them in the future as well. So with that, any questions?
Are there any questions from the board?
One question is, are there any of those systems failing now?
I believe there's one or two. Zach may be better to answer that.
There's at least one in phase one and then potentially two more in phase two when we would get to that.
Okay,
And I think we should note too that, unless I'm mistaken, that the one failure that we have in that area is constricted by size of lot. So they really have no alternative to come up with another system. There's no space for the install. So that's why we started to look at these opportunities of what do we do? Do we, have them maybe look at their own low pressure force main? Do we explore the area knowing that we have smaller lots there where if people have malfunctions in the future, there may be a need for that, even long-term. So, that was kind of what was driving this component too. People that are really out of space, if they were not in this area and they had larger lots, they could do sewer planning. As far as on-lot sewer planning, you may see a different system, some kind of extra leach bed area where they might have the opportunity. And, I think the cost for where those systems are, you're $20,000 to $50,000 depending on those type of systems. So this equivalent amount here where you're looking, it might be a little more potentially, but you're in the ballpark of what a brand new system would cost someone, on an average, and that's how this equates to where we are.
okay, and the next question is, the stuff I read, you were talking about having potentially them wait until they sell the house to actually put in the grinder pump and so forth. But it was not clear if the 22,000 for actually putting in the force main would also be deferred until that time.
Yeah.
Well,
So
you have your choice on that. If you did an assessment, you would be asking for the money immediately. And when I say immediately, over a certain period of time, it could be 90 days, it could be a year, and you would have to pass an ordinance establishing that district. And as I said, in Worcester, they did go the assessment route, and the township did offer a 5-year financing at a very reasonable rate, and most people did take that option. The good thing about a low pressure system is you don't have to hook up right away. Everybody, gravity system, normally you want everybody to hook up to get the flow through the pipe for scouring purposes. When you have a low pressure system, everything's pressurized, so you don't have that same type of problem. So Chalfont, New Britain did a project where they did put it in a tapping fee, and they deferred it. And they just said, when you want to hook up, you can, or when you sell the house, that's a trigger point. And you would want to put that in the agreement or the ordinance. And again, David would be the one to look into this and to discuss with the township the various options. So at least the township's portion up front, the 22,000, and then defer the people being connected in the future. So that's something you would need to think about and look at the various options and make a decision on at some point.
Well, okay, personally, I would prefer to avoid having people get a $22,000 bill right up front.
Yeah, and I think that's a good area to talk policy and where we are. We have those type of funding amounts available, of course, in sewer where we have some capital improvement dollars. So, ultimately you could do that. You could put the install in, you would know that we put out 300 and, $60,000. We may at some point get those dollars back. But at least people would become then aware that if they were to tap or they needed to, there's the fee, there's the district. I mean, I think we have some districts where they've run extensions here in the past where, the tapping fees 14, 18,000 in a couple of those areas where people have never connected to the district at this point, only very few. So you'd be in the same situation. And I think it would be, do you feel that we should put infrastructure in place, and it might not get used for 30 years? Or do you feel that it's more appropriate to, put that in, recoup those dollars to the township over that time period, which may affect people, more directly right away?
Okay, so my view is that a trigger should be that if the system fails, then they have to connect. And the other one to check, if there's a sale or a change of title for whatever reason, they would have to connect. And also, I think that the 14 homeowners should be notified that we are considering it and what the potential costs are so that we can hear from them before we make a final decision.
And as far as I know, they've been notified, right?
Uh,
Or at
They,
least
they have
notified.
not. We've talked to a couple. However, we wanted to have this discussion
Yeah.
from the board to say, hey, there is going to be impacts. Do you want us to continue further so we can start talking to residents? Like, is this an idea that you would be willing to consider so that we can go get that feedback? So we wanted you to see it first where we haven't shared that. So do you think this is a viable option for staff to keep exploring? Do you feel a certain way so when we can approach people, hey, on a sale or a failure, we're not going to make you hook up right away. So we can have those conversations instead of saying, oh, by the way, there's an unknown. You may owe $25,000. By the way, come to the township and let us know how you feel about owing us $25,000. We wanted to kind of say, all right, look, we're willing to spread it out. We're willing to look for future items if that's okay with the board before we had that discussion, got them in here and mobilized them as a neighborhood.
So yeah, I would support moving forward and think that the discussions with the homeowners should be included. A question I have about phase two is half of the homes are in Salisbury Township. Is there any issues with us putting in a force main and requiring them to hook up?
So we would look at that and, correct me if I'm wrong, Zach and Joe, because I know you've already started to do the reach out. We've kind of reached out to our neighbor. We would be looking at that as kind of, I don't want to say a joint project, but potential for joint project. Like, hey, is there a way for us to explore this area? Would ultimately have to potentially, if gravity exists, can we flow actually into Salisbury there? And there would be, agreements and things of that nature to make that happen. Or do we have to look at potentially doing another force main system back towards Riverbend or Fish Hatchery where we could catch that on our own? So yeah, there's a component there where we wouldn't put in the infrastructure in Salisbury, but we would ask them to kind of partner with us conveying over their
Okay, so-
operation.
I would encourage having preliminary discussions with Salisbury.
We have done that. I've spoken with the assistant township manager, who's also spoken with the township manager. Their engineer is aware of it. They're on board in terms of the concept, but we need to take that next step and, but again, we wanted to make sure that we brought this to you guys first to see if it's something that we want to entertain, and then we'll get into greater depths with them.
Okay, so I would envision it as phase one being a 2025 budget item and phase two being a 2026 budget.
Or even later with permitting and,
Huh?
or even later with permitting and everything we would need for that phase
Yeah.
two. That, we kind of looked at that. That's a 5 to 10 year, type planning. This one here, this phase one, you know, if we got permitted, did the construction, 25, potentially 26, in that time frame. But this is more of a long-term, thoughts on where we are. So we really did want to see, would you say, no, we don't really need it, phase two, don't worry about it until it's further down. Yes, we should, address it and continue to partner and now move forward with some more substantial meetings. And same with phase one, you know, is there any inkling at all to spend those dollars and run that right now? Or tell this resident, hey, you figure out an alternative, but it seems like the board is, okay with us considering, both projects and kind of, you know, hey, that's a good idea to sewer, potentially sewer an area that, is in a donut hole for sewer. Anything
I
else?
have no other questions.
Commissioner Butler.
I know the first, phase one is 14 homes. I don't know the number of phase two, but if I remember correctly, there's 4 questionable systems, 1 in phase one and 3 in phase two presently.
Yeah, so I mean, I know Joe could speak to it better, but the reason for the separation and the phasing is mainly because phase one, no matter what, has to be served. It's gonna have to be pumped. It has to be a low pressure system. Whereas phase two does have the potential to get gravity, which is, I think in terms of maintenance and everything else, probably more ideal. But that would also entail obviously working with Salisbury, but potentially the hospital as well. So that could complicate things.
Yeah, I already checked out where the sewers are in Salisbury, and the problem there is the hospital is right in the way, and most of those pipes on the property are all private. So, and they're only 6 inches in most cases. So there would be a need to get the hospital's cooperation and possibly get easements and things like that. So that's going to be a longer process to investigate. The option again would be you could do a low pressure system to serve all of those properties as well, and that's also my initial layout is also shown on that one plan map, a drawing I gave you with the 2 phases, phases 1 and 2. So I haven't done a cost for that yet, but if the township wants me to proceed, I can put together initial cost estimates for that. But we would need to meet with Salisbury and get more detail on their sewer system to see if gravity is feasible due to the property constraints and pipe sizing and things like that.
That 1 home in phase one, what are they doing right now?
I think they're just kind of milking it along for now. I mean, a lot of times when you have a malfunction or the system is failing, you pump it enough, you can kind of keep things going, but obviously that's not economically feasible for most people. And, you know, at some point, it's probably going to fail entirely, and then, right, and then what? So.
All right, so phase one, we have one in
For sure, yeah.
trouble. Phase two,
At least 2, I
3,
think.
2 or 3.
And the problem with phase two is really, and the reason I wanted to look at it, I know we're gonna have these probably pop up over time, over the next, say, 10 to 20 years. But in phase two, the constraint there is that they are smaller lots. I've already had a couple instances where we've just had to use what's called best technical guidance. So when you put in a new septic system, you're kind of not adhering to the regs because you don't have a choice. DEP still has to go. They have to look at it through the approval process, but obviously if there are other alternatives, you try to avoid that, but in these cases, can't. So a lot of times we're reusing drain fields and that sort of thing. Frowned upon, but, you know, no other option, so.
Okay.
So 2 questions for Bruce. Number 1, if we go, and I think we probably should go with the when you sell or when you fail option. Does this show up on a title search that someone purchasing the house has to understand that they need to connect to the sewer? Would that be standard, or is it something that has to be disclosed by the seller?
Probably a question for legal.
Would that be super collateral?
Commissioner, I have to look at it. I have not done one that extends it out that far.
Mhm.
My gut is that a lien would be placed on the property in the amount of the debt, whatever that is.
And then the second one, and it's similar, has to do with the grinder pumps. Now, grinder pumps are gonna have to be replaced at some point. Do we have a mechanism for making sure, I know we have an ordinance that talks about disclosure of certain encumbrances on properties when they're sold. Would there be a mechanism for making sure people understand that they're buying a house with a grinder pump that's gonna have to be replaced?
So we've instituted in the last several years with the emergence of several other low pressure force main systems in the township. The solicitor's office and Zach and Nate have come up with a grinder pump agreement. The grinder pump agreement spells out all of those things, the maintenance that you're should be doing, as well as, you know, keeping those records of that. And then that gets recorded off the lot. So the grinder pump agreement, when we receive them, we've been recording them. So. there
And if
would be that.
anything happens to the grinder pump, the township has the right to go in and fix it.
Right, at the cost of the homeowner.
Correct.
Right. Okay. Yeah, those are my two bigger concerns. I would envision people probably connecting sooner than when they sell, depending on situation. I mean, I heard from one resident that doesn't have a failing system right now that is interested in, sewage in that area. So, it's just more of the long term. I don't want people being blindsided by costs, especially with the price of homes right now here, to walk in and have another $35,000 bill that they weren't expecting.
That would add more value than it.
Absolutely.
Just out of curiosity, at time of settlement, is it the buyer or the seller that pays to do the connection?
That's a good question. I mean, buyer or seller.
Is
when
it the
they-
buyer or seller that does the connection during
It-
a?
In my experience, the buyer, the seller would normally do that before the house is sold, or it would become part of the settlement. In other words, the monies to do that would be subtracted from the proceeds. So there's two different ways of doing it. And again, David would be the one to make sure the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted on that.
Joe's right, and I think we could do it either way, and I think it would be in the ordinance, which would spell that out.
All right. Any further questions? Okay. Thank you very much.
We're gonna keep going. We'll work on phase two. We'll have a reach out. We'll have Zach and engineering work with residents, kind of see if we can start polling them and talking to them about the plan. Even if we have to have another meeting here for them and see if they respond and see what we come up with. And we'll keep the board posted. I'll plan to budget that in the 25 sewer construction part of the budget. And then if we feel that we're not ready to proceed, we'll have it in there. So I think that's a good course of action at least. And then if we are and we can work permitting and everything else, maybe we can start an install next year. If that's all right.
Sounds good.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Thanks, Joe.
Okay, moving forward, item number 3, stormwater video presentation. Mr.
Yeah, so me and Mr. McAdam here are gonna work through this together, but not to steal his thunder. Where we are, and you may or may not remember, several years ago, we started to really look and talk about stormwater infrastructure improvements. As I've said, we need to start to look at and monitor aging infrastructure, including stormwater pipes. A lot of these in the older developments were of a corrugated metal piping. Corrugated metal pipe, of course, is metal and not plastic. So at some point, 40 plus years, we start to see stormwater pipe that is metal start to deteriorate. This leads to a couple of things, at least from my viewpoint. Number one, at some point, that pipe will have to be replaced. If we have to replace pipe, that means we need to dig through yards, dig up roads, and go through all of these things to get to it. However, the other alternative is we can look at pipe condition, and try to use our ability to line pipe, just like we line sewer pipe. And my demonstration piece of liner is in uh, back in the back office. But for those that aren't familiar, and I know all you gentlemen are with the sewer work, they basically put in a resin type sleeve that they pull through pipe, and they then use a heat treatment on it, and you have a solid plastic pipe that's good for 50 to 75 years. The thing to note when you look at that type of process, we can't let pipe go to the point where it doesn't have bottoms. It becomes elliptical and moves. So we went and said, okay, what can we do, and what's the time frame appropriate for us to look at this thing? We budgeted last year, 350,000 to start to look at stormwater. We weren't quite ready. We went back and identified 31,000 linear feet of through various neighborhoods of corrugated metal pipe. We took all of those areas with Zach and Brian's team, and we started to figure out a game plan on how we can both video that and then address it. So we videoed last year 31,000 feet of pipe. We've seen reviewed almost 20,000 feet of it.
20, almost 23.
Yeah, almost 23. And of course, what we're finding is what to be expected. You'll see on the screen, we grabbed some screen grabs of what our facilities look like throughout the township, right? So Mill Creek Road, South Crocs on the bottom left. Another picture of Crocs on the top right. Of what we're seeing. So you're seeing pipes start to rust away, all the sediment that's in there, things of that nature. So what we'd like to do is kind of show you where we are. This is a couple slides of things that we've seen, basically to show the board what it looks like underground, and hopefully we're all in agreement to continue to move forward and come up with a game plan. I would like to finish any videoing we have this year, which we still think we have some pipe that we've identified where we can get out and do that again. Get Brian's team to evaluate that, and they literally went through every piece of this video. They noted sections of pipe that could be repaired, pipe that's in good condition, pipe that can last for a while yet, pipe that is getting close to its lifespan, and then pipe that needs replaced or lined in this instance, and then those pipes that are going to be past the point of lining. So what they've come up with right now, and I think that they're around 2,300 or 2,500 feet of pipe, and an immediate side between $400,000 and $500,000 that we should begin to address as soon as we can. So, you got any more pictures in there, Nate? And so you'll see that pipe on the bottom. There's no bottom left in it. It's rusted away. And then some of the other places you see Southridge, up on the right's Astor. So there's varying degrees. Most of this piping is in those older neighborhoods: Shepherd Hills, Winding Brook, Ancient Oaks, South area, over right off of Lower Country Road, Hidden Valley Farms, those places, and then various cross pipes. So we've really tried to, and we found more corrugated metal pipe than what we thought as we explored those maps that we had. Uh, that we're in the township for a while, we've actually found more than what was on the map. So we're building the data set. We're building our file. We have a course of action now to start to address certain pipe. I think just like sewer, we need to continue to video monitor where we are. So get through this pipe, budget in our stormwater line item like we have for maintenance repair, but get an ongoing program where we come back every so many years. We're doing video. We're having the engineer review it to see if we're still on track with better or worse. I would note when we looked at the video last year and Brian's team of other Brian, we have around about 7.2 million worth of repairs or process if we would go line everything right now at this instant. We did submit for a grant in excess of about 2.5 million. We were denied, of course, by the state. So now we're trying to figure out piecing, $5 to $7 million of repairs over what you see might not be a very long lifespan. So just wanted to have a conversation, wanted to show the board where we were, wanted to see if you had any more input, if we're in the right direction. I think we are. I think this is pretty telling about, and there's your last slide. So that is showing, and part of our maintenance program, what we'd like to do in areas, have a flushing program. We may have to get one of the companies that we dealt with, like to video, that can come in and flush. That's a little more excessive than what we can do, as you see the rocks on the bottom for, sewer jet truck or things of that nature, a little more specialty there. So that's one of the other things we would look at: videoing, pipe maintenance with debris removal, and then potential lining, preferably before we have to dig and replace. So a lot of those pipes, not a lot, but some of those pipes come from the street, of course, and discharge. They'll come between two neighbors' houses. They'll discharge towards, a conveyance facility down like one on Winding Brook off of Princeton over there. We just did the MS4 work where one of those pipes outlets. So they do run in areas that the township doesn't control, and making sure that residents are taken care of when we have to go through easements is always difficult. And people that may have put things over easements back in the day, like fences or sheds, or don't like the color of grass that the township would plant, or replant as we go through there, is always difficult in situations that I've got to experience for 10 years of my career with their dissatisfaction. So I'm hopeful, and it really doesn't matter if we go out at the same time as a sewer lining, but those companies are the type of companies that do that. I think with the volume of repairs we have, we'll have plenty of interest for that. I think that the largest pipe they can line is like 5 feet in diameter. At least it used to be. So it's pretty amazing what they can do on that side. So here's some pipes. There's some video. Hopefully we're in the right direction. I'm going to include that further for budget stuff, but any questions or things we can do, or, even more detailed presentation we can come back with, and really give you a map with certain areas and identify those repairs. We can get that for you.
All right. Questions from the board?
One of my concerns is that we do this on pipes that are too far gone.
Yeah.
Well,
Go ahead, Brian.
may I?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so what we're trying to identify is any issues we see with these respective storm sewer pipes in the older neighborhoods. There's no doubt that, as at least one of the photos showed, some of the pipes are beyond repair.
Yeah.
In terms of you can't line them, you're going to have to replace them. So we're going through and we're identifying ones that could be lined, others that just are going to have to be replaced. Bruce doesn't give himself enough credit. This whole idea was spurred on because as we've discussed with the township, changing the way the road program has been done and transitioning to more of a mill and overlay program, what we found is that many of these older roads have gotten these, I'll say, other surface treatments for years and realistically should be redone, like legitimately. And to Bruce's credit, this coincided with some other conversations of other pipes in the township. And he said, hey, wait a minute, if we're getting about a 40 to 50-year lifespan out of a CMP, he says, I'm pretty sure a lot of the older developments have CMP pipe. We don't want to be spending a ton of money on the road program unless we got pipes underneath that are going to be okay. I don't want to go do a mill and overlay and then next year find out that, oh my God, I got settlement because the pipe collapsed. So long story short, the impetus for this was because of changes we're proposing to the road program. And as we've uncovered, it was like, there's a lot of different things that need to be looked at. And as you can see in some of the photos, some of it is maintenance, some of it is maintenance of the pipes themselves, maintenance to the inlet boxes. And then we're seeing how many pipes can be relined, how many would need to absolutely just be replaced. And relative to where we're at, one of the things is similar to the sewer pipe, the sanitary sewer pipelining. Obviously, things have to be paid for. So the township doesn't currently have a line item in the budget for this type of work. So our recommendation is it probably is a good idea. You really need to start doing this. It is a finite thing. There's only so much CMP in the township. So, one of the things I discussed with Brian Cisak this afternoon was, I don't want this to be portrayed to the board like you're going to be doing this forever. As you know, with any municipal infrastructure, there's always going to be operation and maintenance costs. But what we're trying to do is help identify stuff that could be way more costly now so that we try to get ahead of that a little bit. So, Maury, a very long answer to your question, but some of the pipes will need to be replaced. Some we will be able to reline. And that's kind of what we want to lock in and then try to hit it as logically as possible, whether we do it neighborhood by neighborhood, or we go and we do maybe 1 year we do all replacements, the next year we do all linings. We still have to figure that out, but that's part of what we're doing. So not all of them will be beyond repair, but some of them will.
And what kind of pipes are we using now for stormwater in the roads?
The majority of the pipes that get put in roads, majority are concrete, reinforced concrete. Off the top of my head, I don't know how many of the subdivisions in the township were done with CMP versus the current requirement for concrete.
I think the concrete went in, like mid 90s, maybe that parameter changed. So anything like kind of pre 90, you're in more of a metal type situation till that changed. Now I would know too what we need to be mindful of in a couple of the videos that I've seen, where we were looking for metal pipe, we ended up in some concrete pipe. What you need to make sure we monitor, which is part of the video side, to get and spend those dollars, start to work through the rest of the pipe, including the concrete, is sometimes you get joint separation, and joint separation, you're getting the same type of thing where that dirt and everything from the top of the pipes coming now into the pipe. Eventually, that cover that's above the pipe will be in it, and then the street will also kind of sink a little bit. So we have found even in concrete pipe that it's, we have these problems in a couple joints.
Well,
So.
and that's the thing. There can be issues with concrete, but relative to the pipe deterioration with corrugated metal, it's more that the pipe just disintegrates. Reinforced concrete, absolutely, especially up here, if you get settlement in joints because of sinkholes or whatever, you may get deflections that maybe could just be repaired as opposed to, something more than full replacement. And to piggyback on that, the one note that I have from Brian is what we did to identify some of these areas is anything in the GIS system that was older than 30 years old, whereas it was installed between 1966 and 1991, which coincides with what Bruce was saying. So trying to identify these things and basically establish a program similar to what was probably done with the sanitary sewer lining as a result of the I&I issue.
And I think for me, especially on the budgeting side, which I always kind of put the heat on Brian and their team of what is the expectation for how long we have before we're in a worse situation. I always like to work back and say, do we have 10 years? Can I work that back now? You know, 500,000-600,000 a year, 10 years, we know we're there, or do we have more of a mission critical? This is 5 years or less. We need to look at this and put our efforts into addressing more sooner. So that's something that they've been, working on to get us a really good answer. So
And certainly, we will continue to apply for grants. Because I mean, they're out there. I can't tell you why we didn't get the other one, but we will continue to apply for grants. And wherever we can get free money, we will try.
Other questions from the commission? Do we have a good idea at this point what is critical replacement versus down the road? I mean, I know you're just talking about, like, what do we have that we think needs to be replaced in very short order?
right now we have that like 2,300 feet, right, Brian, as I understand it, that's, about 465, 500,000.
Yeah.
Top of the list that they've identified going through video, that's the top charts.
Yep.
Where they could be ready to roll out with a bid and everything else to
So like,
address
that's
that.
something we could get done in the next budget cycle.
right away. Yeah, right. Well, I would do that like anything else. Work through the spec, have that go out by the end of this year, get a number back by around budget time, October, November, have the board award that, include it in the budget, and then we're ready to go whenever they're ready to line pipe.
And I'm not talking about the lining part. I'm talking about like the replacement part.
Well, and so some of these are mission critical lining because we still can at that
Right,
point.
right.
As opposed to the falling apart. We can get the breakdown, right?
I think what we would do, it would be two completely different kind of contractors. So my gut feeling would be, we'd put out two different bids,
Mhm.
specifically because you don't want to have somebody come in and sub somebody out and
Right.
jack up the prices. So we would probably go out two different bids where these fell apart. We can save these if we do them right now, line them and work that up.
Yeah, and I can give you like one of the areas is South Crocs. So say up past Legends, up north more towards like the clubhouse and everything. There's a section in there where we've noticed pipe. We have it on video now. We're gonna probably need catch basin repair and pipe. So that would be one of the things where we would look at going up the side of the street, getting the pipe, getting the catch basins, making that one project and putting that out, on the volume of dollars. That would be one project. Then find another segment, do the same type of thing where it's everything. It's not just the pipe, it's the catch basins and the pipe.
And I would even be okay with, or would like to see the possibility of even not relying so heavily on what we do for sanitary sewer as much as stormwater, for the simple reason that we've put so much into sanitary sewer in the last 10 years and nothing in the stormwater, or little in the stormwater, but stormwater has a more immediate impact on the residents if systems are failing and it's causing issues. So even if it's not a 50-50 and it's a 75-25, based on what we have to do versus maybe what we'd like to do.
Well, the problem is, right, so you're talking two separate budget funding streams now. So none of this work, as I understand it, we can't use any of our sewer dollars. So you could keep your sewer program continuing to move forward, where this is, even though you're using the same technique, we're gonna have to capital budget it or find some general fund dollars. So I would still recommend your sewer fund has an aggressive I&I program that meets our Chapter 94 reporting for the state, as well as doing this. You're almost in totally separate division, but something, as you said, is impactful. We're going to see it. We know it's big dollars. Yeah, and it does impact the rent. They both do, but this is a little more impactful because we have only tax dollars that support this side of it, where ratepayers, and they are taxpayers, but ratepayers support that other component of the construction.
Okay.
And I think something even though it would be out of two different kitties, um, the sanitary lining, there is an end in sight. You know, I mean, you will probably do some lining
Really
eventually of,
expensive end in sight, but.
well, but it is a finite thing. You still, like I mentioned earlier, you're still gonna have O and M on the entire township infrastructure. But the lining of the old clay pipes, I mean, there's only so much of it that you have. Similarly, and I think if I recall correctly from the different presentations Joe has done, you know, we're getting to the end of that. You know, so you're still gonna have some maintenance and
Right.
maybe some other linings and whatnot. But this is something that, you know, as Bruce mentioned, there hasn't been the need to do this hasn't really been raised before. And, you know, it sort of brings out a lot of maintenance type things that maybe could be done more frequently. I don't want to touch on
Mhm.
how Public Works does their stuff or how they should do it or whatever, but it's a nice catch-all doing these videos. It was money well spent because it identifies things that we need to do, and perhaps it's a matter of getting ahead of things from a general maintenance standpoint, you know, but I think it's because it's a more visible public impact. It's kind of one of those things kind of got to be done.
And to get this plan rolling, as you said, right, we've put a focus in sewers where we televise every sewer line, you know, in a quadrant over in 10 years. You know, you're getting another video survey, you're getting another manhole inspection, right? We're on a frequency where, you know, a 10-year manhole inspection, we're doing 400 a year, getting through our 4,000, right? Where we need to start thinking of stormwater that kind of the same way, right? This is the same type of thing. We should be looking at it, videoing it, working outfalls like rip wrapping and general maintenance, and getting that next schedule. So then it just becomes commonplace where we are, you know, oh, hey, what are we doing? We're looking at, you know, 15,000 feet of video every year. We're, you know, looking to see if there's any outfall maintenance, stone repairs. Are there any major projects coming so that we know and we can catch it a little bit earlier too? And 15-year cycle, like, hey, 10 years, we might catch something that we have 5 more or 10 more years till we have to
Yeah.
address it, you know? It's just changing the mindset to get on that long-term 20-year vision.
Well, I can say that I'm happy that we're continuing down the road of revamping the street repair process. The worst thing I think we can do is continue to do things that throw money at something that doesn't actually address the overall problem. And I appreciate you thinking of this because there's always a hidden gem in whatever you do. And you're right, you don't want to do a new road and then dig it up. We kind of did that on Sauerkraut at one point because we had the depression close to where I live after the road was done, which now there's a big patch in the middle of the road that looks awful. But that's just the way it was.
Is there anything we can do to get LCA to look at their water lines?
Yeah,
Because it seems like on most of the streets, it's the patches to the water lines
Mhm.
that are the biggest collection.
yeah, and ultimately when we, you know, and I'm sure Brian might have a different idea or way to approach it, but I think, you know, as we look and get our streets onto that paving overlay program, you know, there's that notification a year or two before to both the gas company, as well as the water authority and anybody else that's in there to say, hey, in 2 years, we're going to dig up this roadway, you know? And I think the other component, when we have time internally is, bringing back the street opening excavation chapter, ordinance to the board to say, hey, look, if you dig a street within 5 years of it being milled and paved, you're doing a full width overlay for the entire affected area that you dig the street, which we don't currently have now at this point. So if you start to institute things like that, where, okay, if they dig it up and as Maury said, you know, year 3, guess what? The street's getting all repaved again. So that's an important component with this on the legal end to bring back.
And I guess in some ways we've been lucky because we have really milled and overlaid very few streets. You know, we've done a lot of cosmetic work without any real foundational work. So we've been lucky. I mean, we do get patches because they're digging up roads, but most of them haven't been done in I mean, I'm in my house 20 years. That's never been redone. It's been basically painted 15 times, but it's never been dug up.
Right.
You know, and I guess maybe we're lucky in that way that we've not addressed some of the foundational issues, but yeah, and I think that's something you have to get to us so that we can get it in place sooner rather than later. Mike? Sure. I knew you were here for a reason, so once I saw the picture of Astor, then I'm like, I know why Mike's here.
The Astor Road issue I brought up earlier in the year. I want to give you some history of that because it's absolutely imperative that you think about this maintenance program. In the last 2 years, the sewer line that you had slip lined throughout Ancient Oaks West, and spent probably $500,000 doing that, made the connection to the Western Lehigh Interceptor across the Lehigh Creek. In the past 2 years, we've had two major blockages in there. One happened on Easter morning. The other happened this past spring. And the results of that became evidence that the lining, slip lining didn't line up with the sewer lines. And I guess the guys have gone back out there and tried to rectify it, but they had to bring in the jetter truck because it caused a blockage where the collector line of the township meets the interceptor across the creek. There lies the problem. The storm sewer line that drains all of Ancient Oaks West, the entire subdivision, is in front of my house. There's two inlets. One is a corrugated pipe, which you saw the condition of it. The other was a PVC type pipe, same size, that was installed in '96 when LCA came in and did all the water lines in the entire subdivision. The PVC pipe works great. Can't say much for it. The corrugated pipe, however, is deflected severely between the sets of two townhouses and it's collapsed. The problem is when we had the blockages, the township jetter truck went over that pipe and it almost got stuck to the point where you guys had to probably bring in Mechanics Plus to pull it out because it sunk pretty deep in there. So in my humble opinion, that pipe should be number one on your list to replace because you can't get to the major collector line. That collector line, in fact, backed up to the point where it flooded sewage into several houses along Astor Road. Luckily, my basement drain was sealed off, but others weren't, and they had raw sewage in their basement. And that happened in April and in the previous year as well. My concern is your road crew couldn't get out to the sewer lines because they were underwater at the time, and the jetter truck almost got stuck where they couldn't flush out the blockage. So if you're going to do something like this, one leads to the other. Also, Verizon happened to stick their utility lines over the same stormwater line. So all I'm saying to you guys is this is a great opportunity to listen to Bruce, that this is something that needs to be tackled now. It's not something that can wait. And if you had to tackle one in particular, it should be Astor Road, only for the fact that there's 400 homes and sewer lines that rely on that storm sewer pipe being exactly right next to it. I mean, they're right up above against each other, so you can't get to the sewer line without going over the stormwater line.
All right,
Thank
thanks,
you.
Mike. You know, I did see this really cool video the other day where someone attached a rope and a tire to a truck and they drag it through the pipe and it clears out all the clog. It was really fascinating to watch. So maybe, you know, as an option, it's probably a little less expensive, but you know, just a thought. I'm going to find the video because it really is. It's very satisfying to watch.
I've seen it.
Have you seen it?
Yeah.
It's really cool. It's a pretty big tire. Yeah, it was pretty interesting. Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Vital. Truck parking on Scenic View Drive.
I'm taking these all. Everybody's gonna be tired of hearing from me tonight. Just a quick update. You know, we have been talking about this. We've heard the residents' feedback. We've had the traffic engineer go out do a preliminary review. The prelim review, prelim shows us there is ample room for safe parking on both sides of the street for any of the vehicles that people have had complaints about. We are looking at other alternatives for the area that may be able to be implemented to kind of look at that situation a little bit differently. So we understand the residents' frustration down there with, what we would say oversized truck parking. However, from the engineering component, there is an appropriate amount with his initial measurements. So just want to let you guys know we're working on it still. We put it on the agenda just to keep moving it and talking about it. So we haven't forgotten. So
If I may. I guess one of the issues, other than the fact of I understand the traffic patterns of finding vehicles on either side. However, I believe one of the other concerns was kids or people walking, coming from behind those trucks, which I understand, because I've driven down there. And I didn't have a problem with it, but I could understand if I lived there, why I would have.
I mean, it's a good reason, to build recreation facilities at your house. So you don't have to go anywhere, right?
There you go.
Okay, inside joke. All right, number 5, review proposed fee schedule amendments.
just something on the fee schedule, you'll see updated for outdoor pickleball rentals by non-residents. And then we're working still internally on the recently approved garbage contract and those fees. So finance has that and they're looking at it. And then we'll have to talk about and think about, just to put in everybody's mind, the Yard Waste Compost Center, where we've started to look at ideas internally with staff on what we can make go. Where we are with that is we're looking at running some of our membership type software for recreation through to issue people a hard card. The hard card, much like we use downstairs for the pool, would be scannable with RFID, kind of like when you go to Costco or they look at your membership that way. The system does have some limitations though right now, which is what we're working through. We're trying to do some internal testing, but making sure we have the right amount. And as Maury conveyed the other night with those people that may need less frequent trips, those people that may need more trips. We're really trying to balance out how we approach that. Right now, the system only lets you do.
Bruce, can I interrupt you for 1 second? Julie, now see, if Renee was here, the door would be
The
unlocked.
door is unlocked. I unlocked the door on the left-hand side.
But we're going to blame Bruce for that one.
You can blame me.
Okay, go ahead.
So what we're finding is in the way that we can task membership, lets you only renew for the level of membership that you got. If not, you're doing a complete reissuance of cards and memberships. So, for example, if you have a buy a membership, and we'll just throw the number out, right? 25 trips for $50. You could go onto the computer, you could do that. We could print your card at the community center at one time here too. Once we get the hard card printer, Public Works, you would have your hard card. Once you used your 25 trips, the staffing can see as you're using your trips on the actual computer screen, hey, you have 5 trips left, 1 trip left, where you're going to have to refill your card. When you go to refill that card, you can't say, well, I only want 10 now. I want 50. That would mean a whole new procedure and a whole new reissuance of cards. So our technology is not quite there to be as flexible as we want it to be. So we're trying to work a couple ideas where we can onboard people maybe at a set rate that everybody's comfortable with and price. But we are struggling for like, okay, a 10-person trip. Like if you just want to buy 10 for the year at $20 or $25, you're going to have to then renew at 10 every time. So if you come back and say after the first year, oh, well, I really want to go every time. Good, Rich.
What if, say I want 10, I use my 10 and come from my 11th trip. Why don't you just charge my whatever card I put on for that? the additional cost, whatever it is for that day trip?
Yeah, so two things with that. Number one, we don't really your credit card information really isn't like captive, so I can't go and redo that. And the second thing is, um, we may have staff at the Yardway Center that we're trying to make the technology as easy as we can for them. So we're thinking about what happens where you're out of trips now, the line's behind you. We take your card number real quick or something that we write it down. Staff follows up with you, Monday morning or Tuesday. So w- we're trying to vet out how that all might work, and we're having some difficulty. I mean, somebody had an idea, and I thought it was a good one. There's 26 grass cuts in a season. Um, then bookend it. Do 4 weeks before, 4 weeks after. That gives you like 34 weeks out of 52. Charge that as the permit. Then it's basically a year. We're not looking, and the technology doesn't let us have. Well, you could, but a year permit would be finite and change how to redo it. We would say buy the trips, they don't expire. So if it takes you 3 years to get through 34 trips, then that card would go until you're out of trips. Hey, look, even if you weren't a resident then at that point and you used your trips, you're eventually going to be out and not able to kind of renew through. So
So they wouldn't have like an expiration date. They would be yours until they're gone.
correct, but we're trying to figure out too on the balance sheet how we show that with the accounting side, how we show these outstanding obligations. We would have to kind of book into there, but I don't want to say we're struggling, but we're having issues trying to make sure we're adaptable enough. And we know it's something we want to get on the fee schedule here fairly soon because we want to start letting people know, hey, maybe January it starts, but like February, March is a go live. When you come back from winter, go live is March. We can go now give out some cards and have people start registering for permits. We're worried about how overwhelming, 3,000 or 2,000 permits is going to be to staff to get through that part. So,
Well, and I think with anything you start, it's not going to be perfect to start off with. There's going to be an evolution here. I think technology will catch up, and it would be interesting to be able to purchase a membership at a certain level and then be able to reload should you want more. And I think that also works on the accounting side because now you got some people who are buying more than one a year, but one person may have bought a yearly one that lasts for 3 years or longer. I would be curious, and I understand the whole hard card issue. I would be more curious if we could have something along the lines of the sticker we already have that is scannable, only because then the card's not being passed off. And that would be my bigger concern, that you get a commercial person that we already get who now gets somebody's card and now they're dumping their stuff.
well, and that is a good idea. We thought about that. We're not sure, and we're actually going to go back to the vendor. We're not sure how we associate that. I don't want to say random sticker, but getting that barcode with somebody's account, almost like you have to scan it first. So it's in there, then issue out with a number. We've had that idea. We're not sure if that'll work. But the other thing we said is, and we're impacted. I mean, we see 52,000 trips to the Yardway Center every year, ranging from somebody that just comes with their one little potted plant that they feel the need to drive down to, as you said, even though they're not supposed to be, we think we have commercial people in there. So we're having the idea, okay, you have the hard card and you may give, Rich your hard card, but if you come through there with more than a pickup truck or that's 2 scans. You come with a trailer, that's 2 scans. So at some point, someone's going to be paying for that volume. Whereas now we don't really have anybody that's accountable for that side. Cause I can give you my paper permit
Right.
or.
Well, like if you look at the car wash that that was just built on Hamilton, that's one of 3. The original one over on Broadway, I was a member and I have a sticker on my window that just got scanned every time I went through. And you could get a certain number of washes or you could get unlimited washes. And at one point I used to go every day because I had unlimited washes. It was fun. It was also soothing, but it just got scanned through the window, and if And we were talking about making technology easy for people as they pull up and you just take the gun and you scan the window and boom, that's it. It has to be attached to a vehicle and that's the vehicle you have to bring when you want to do it. And then I think it takes away that whole, well, if they come with a trailer, we're going to charge them 2 trips, or if it's a longer, it's 3. That to me becomes more cumbersome.
But-
And I, sorry. go
But
ahead.
yeah, my concern, one is what is a trip? That, I put a couple of garbage cans in the back of my van, take it down and go back and get another load, and it still doesn't add up to a cubic yard. So, but then the dump trailers, how many cubic yards is that, and so forth, so.
Well, and
One,
I don't mean to cut you off, Maury, but I also think that we had to get to a point where there is a proposal. That you're making a proposal so that we can dissect it. I mean, we can all give you a lot of advice and we can give you
Yeah.
different things, but I think it's easier to do once there's something concrete.
Well, and I can say maybe, and I haven't laid it out on paper, but where we are is 34 trips, $100 extra, anything more than in a pickup truck or a 4x8, it's 2 scans. You have to renew at a full 34 rate. That gets you through an entire season. Basically, you can come once a week for the whole season, which we think is probably a little bit excessive as well. But then that's the proposal we're looking at the board at some point to say, yeah, I think that's a good parameter. Knowing what I've kind of just laid out for you and getting this feedback, like that's what we're going to recommend as a staff that we think we can get to work at this point. The only other thing we can think of is we do less and we say it's $5 a trip, $5 by, 10 trips on that card. And then that creates more logistics for us on the back end, making sure we're watching how many scans you have left. So those are really the proposal we're leaning towards is that $100 per permit. You can have your card for your family, whether you have car X, car Y, you show your plastic, we're actually getting those fees. So, that's where I think we're going to recommend to the board. And that hasn't really, something that we haven't really, we've gotten to that point, I guess, after 2 months of research.
okay, another question is, the free mulch. Who qualifies for it?
Yeah, free mulch. Anybody that wants to take it, if there's people listening, anybody that wants to come get mulch, we cannot get rid of it. So if you can bring triaxles, tandems, whatever we can do to get that mulch out of here, by all means, please come get it.
So any resident of the township, if they've got
At
a,
this point, anyway.
Anybody at this point.
Okay.
If you can bring, like I said, the bigger the truck you can bring, the better will be. And we actually talked about grinding and having a company do the haul away, and it's going to be, $9,000, $15,000, bless you, to have that happen. We cannot get people to take the mulch at this point. And that's something maybe as we talk about the business operation as a whole, which isn't really fee schedule amendment stuff, but talking about the business model of a whole, the more trips we have there, the more things that are generated. We want people to use it for household. We want you to bring down the same type of things that you're putting out with your curbside service, which you have with the new service still, like those 5 bundled to 48 inches, you can lift them. Whereas we're seeing this excessive situation, but that costs us all the way down through, labor, where we're grinding. We had 2 guys for 2 weeks running 2 loaders and a grinder days straight, then we're hauling, right? So the less material we can get there and still serve the residents, the better we can be on permitting and passes and the cost of those passes to get that out there. And I still think we'll lose some dollars. We're around $320,000 to operate that whole type of recycling operation, 250 to 320. Even if we are lucky enough to get 3,000 people there at $100, we're still going to be in the hole, just to see where it goes. And maybe our pricing's way too high and we don't get people that want to come. if we go way too low, all right, we're going to operate at a loss. We're going to see this break even that doesn't happen for us. And we're not here to make money on it, but we've been supplementing it through the general fund budget for all these years. And with the cost, some costs embedded into the trash bills where we haven't really seen that. And now that we're in this part, it's how do we get happy customers for convenience and just a good place to be and to come down? Or do we have to start limiting hours and say, one day a week, one Sunday, one Tuesday, this is what we can do now to get our overhead down. And would rather, maybe it's a bad policy, would rather charge the $100 or $75 and say, here it is, do what you need to do, bring what you need to bring, and we'll work it back that way instead of cutting that's something that it seems like a lot of people, are into. So, but if you would ask for proposals, that's where we are. We just wanted to finalize it a little more and get feedback. Is it too much? Do you think it's not enough? Do you think we should be, more flexible with less trips and a lower cost to try to get people in there, to kind of move through that and see if we're in the right direction?
So our biggest financial drains are the compost center and the pool.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would like to see two options. Like I'd like to see a full year option and a half year option. This way if you can either buy a full year or you can buy a half year, but if you run out, understand you're basically buying a full year. So, but again, I think the bottom line is they have options. One, you have two options for there, but you also have the option of never coming at all and just putting it to the curb, which you have the ability to do. And I think it's important to make it as less cumbersome as possible because of staff time and what it takes to do this. Because again, that just adds to what it costs to run the yard. So if now it's going to take us forever to be printing out cards and all that other stuff, you're adding costs that aren't anticipated at this point. Any other questions, comments?
Well, I agree that, I think there should be an option for the people that want to use the curbside pickup for the stuff that is generated while the service is there, but then being able to do the fall trimming and be able to take the stuff down and, maybe make one or two trips during the regular pickup times, because you got a tree that fell down or something like that, and you got to get rid of it. So, a 10 and 35 kind of option seems like that would work, and having it be more per trip with the shorter thing would be fine.
So like so say 10 trips for $50. That's $5 a trip, and maybe 35 is like $2 or $3 to
Yeah.
get you there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Yep.
you almost could have like an in season or out of season. Like,
Well, but having it so you can
Right.
use both.
I'm just
is-
thinking of marketing.
Yeah,
You can
Yeah.
get the in season pass, which gets you a lot of service, or the out
Okay.
when no one else is doing it.
No, that's a good idea. And everybody feels comfortable about the 2 trips charging for, if with a trailer in excess of vehicle, like that should be two charges.
Yeah, I have no problem with it. I just want to see you and be able to enforce it. That's going to be, I'm going to just sit and watch. That'll be fun. You can bring popcorn and watch those guys try to enforce, we're going to hit you twice with this, and someone going crazy. It's
Well, they won't really have a chance. They'll just gun it twice. So they won't really know. They're going to get 2 guns
no,
and
I'm
say,
telling you, it's
that's
going to
a-
be fun. I'm
but
going to,
it should be 2 or 3 depending on.
maybe I'll just sit there and I'll yell to the people. Did you know he charged you twice? Ask him why.
Yeah. So all right, we'll come back. We'll work this up and see how we can, get that moving. I think those are good ideas. I want to make sure that we've tested the card already. We want to get it to maybe a couple people once we update the yard waste booth over there with technology, and then just have some randoms try it out and see what the experience is. So, for free, and see where we go. 'Cause there's no cost right now, but see what we have. But, other than that, we'll have the garbage, we'll have the, rec fee on there. And we'll come back with a proposal I'll circulate to the board on the yard waste.
Yeah. Yes, Commissioner Whitler.
The yard waste centers for residents.
Correct. And that's the other, not to interrupt you, that's the other good part about using through the rec management software. We can make a determination between resident, non-resident. So that will flag accounts if you're not a resident to get a membership.
And what Brian said, that would keep the pirates out of
Mhm.
Harlow's with your
Yeah.
bill. And also another stipulation could be you gotta be current with your bills. If you're not current with your garbage, how can you?
Yeah.
The big thing is you said commercial. So
We believe that there's some commercial, marked, but there's some people that are in there very frequently.
How-
associating the car with the account.
Yeah.
Help your
And how are we gonna deal with the McCunchie people that,
We would look at, and we can discuss this further, but ending our relationship that way and making sure that we serve our residents first.
okay.
that have their bill current.
Are you gonna address the South Cedar Brook Road turn back?
I am. I'm going to address all the
Yeah.
next three if we're
Okay,
if we're
I
good.
was gonna say, keep going.
I'm going to keep going. My voice is getting tired. I'm out of water. So just to let everybody know, we're working with our friends at PFM, as well as the solicitor's office to look at, open space debt financing. And I think it's important, as the township's aware, or we're always seeking opportunities to purchase or engage open space. A lot of that designated on the official map. As part of that, or any future purchases that may occur, it's necessary that we have a funding component to deliver on that purchase or purchases. So what we'd like to do and what we've engaged PFM, of course, this is no cost on their side, only a cost if we write financing with them. They're the company that helped us with our last open space financing and the refinancing of some previous debt for the community center. We've engaged them to go out and shop the market for current rates. What they're doing is looking at two different approaches. One is to look at banks or bank loan market, which is what we currently have had with our past lendings. The other is they've engaged an underwriter to do requests for proposals for the bond market. Where we think we need to be, we've asked them to look at funding plans in the area of 15 to $25 million. We believe that that would be an appropriate amount to have in case open space becomes available. That means that we would have to spread that amount out over a period of 20 to 25 years. We think at this point 25 is going to be the appropriate spot for that financing. I would note that this debt, of course, would be paid back by the open space earned income tax. We've said, and I think, working through the last budget component, that we would like to make sure we keep and utilize 25% that the law allows to maintain and improve open space. So that amount of a lend, gets us to that 25% for that maintenance, 75 for the remaining component to spend towards debt. We would see two steps in the process. One would be a sub $10 million bond for under 10 million. You can do a bank qualified bonding, which makes interest rates a little bit lower potentially. Do that, borrow, and start that this year, knowing that timing may be of the essence with some of the open space on the official map by the end of the year. get that first piece moving, as I said, we're out for RFP now, awaiting responses, and I'll have the date for that. But that first tier, just on a projection, it would be, 700,000 of new debt. Roll the next piece, which would be um, in excess of 10 million, which is a non-bank qualified, for around 12, $13 million to give us our balance. That would put us in another $900,000 in debt servicing per year for the next 25 years, for a total of like 1.7 million, which is that 75%. That would obligate the township for 25 years, to make these purchases, or as many purchases as the township would choose to do. We could have and what we're looking at is a draw where we can draw down on those monies, take several draws as we have the ability to negotiate if land would become available, to kind of spread that out as well. We're looking now, we have RFPs out to underwriters. They went out July 8th. We are waiting for responses that are due July 29th. Would like to, and PFM would have potential updates at an August meeting, whether that's, I think we're going to be a little conflicted with scheduling on August 1st or the 15th, or maybe even the workshop, to have the board have a consideration for, adopting an ordinance, a debt ordinance to move things forward, sometime at that meeting, late August or early September, and then settling on that portion of the first phase of financing sometime late September or beginning of October, so that the money could be dispersed by the end of the year. So a lot of moving parts with this. I think if we want to have some further discussions in an executive about some of the land acquisitions we're looking at and pricing, that would be helpful, just to make sure we're on the right target for the lend. The gentleman from PFM, of course, we are flexible. We can do some changing of amounts, but it's a difficulty till we find properties and know exactly what the amount's going to be. To have them as professional financial people say, this is, just give us a range of X to Y. So things would be a little fluid as that changes through.
Are you requesting a executive after this meeting?
No, I think if we can have some thoughts, and maybe after first August meeting, that would be helpful, just because we have some appraisals, confirm the number with the board, make sure the targets are where we want to be, as we continue to piece this financing together. I think what's most important is for the board to know that we're out. We are looking just to see what rates might or might not be, and go from there. So for us to meet that aggressive timeline, we're getting very aggressive now on putting something together for you. I do have a presentation from PFM. I will share that with the board. After this meeting, I'll email it out so that everybody can see where we are.
Questions?
Nope.
All right. Solid waste ordinance amendment, just to tell everybody we're drafting between various staff members in the solicitor's office, like we talked about, some updates of our current ordinance identifies that you don't need a certain can for trash. That's with the contract has now changed to the provided cart. So there's various sections of the ordinance where we have to change to make that conform with that spec, as well as some components of viewing of cans from the street, and these toters. We know with the 96 and the 65 that it may be difficult for some people to hide those containers. So we're looking at language on that viewability from the street. So we're in process. We'll get it back to the board. Unless you have anything else that you really want to change about the solid waste ordinance, we're going to recommend that you know, we make sure the contract matches or the ordinance matches the contract. So,
All this week, did it one tire a week?
I gotta look at that. I think that's considered bulk. I gotta look and see what they say about tires. I can't remember what's in there. If a tire is a bulk item,
Are you talking about existing?
new.
The new one.
So, all right, good. All right, we'll talk about the South Cedar Brook Road turn back. Just something that Brian's been working on with his team as well. You know, Nate will pull up the overhead for those not familiar. South Cedar Brook runs off the bypass to a dead end back by the stone wholesaler back there. To the left is the county cemetery and one of the church cemeteries with the Top Golf Lehigh Valley Town Center project.
Behind it.
Is that
yeah.
the name of it? Lehigh Valley, with the Lehigh Valley Town Center project. It takes somewhat of a reconfiguration of the driveway entrance coming off of the bypass. There's its current configuration as Nathan is showing. What's going to happen is there will be an entrance from South Cedar Brook to the private roadway that stretches to there. The private roadway component, of course, is the developers. South Cedar Brook is a state PennDOT roadway, service road that you see there. 2, I believe, is a township road, which we have proposed to name Sawyer Lane. But with the reconfiguration, PennDOT is not looking to have their road connect to a township component from the bypass to the private entrance. So they've suggested that the township consider a turnback of the road. Turnback means the state gives that roadway back to the township. When they give that back to the township, it's called turnback. They give just like liquid fuels, they give an amount instead of liquid fuels for turnback dollars. They would measure the roadway. There is a set amount per mile of turnback amount that they would give to the township, separate from liquid fuels, but like liquid fuels that we would receive. As we were approached by the developer and what our thoughts were of the service road, or of not of the service of South Cedar Brook, Brian and his group and our inspector Matt met the developer out there and did a field walk of the roadway. As you do turn back, you can have PennDOT pay for repairs, as I understand it, or you can request that the repairs are made to the roadway. So we walked that with the developer who may have some obligation of making that meet our appropriateness of turnback or acceptance for the road. And we did identify some potential under drain. We identified milling and paving full width. We identified putting some type of turnaround for township plow trucks all the way at the end, either a hammerhead or something of that nature to make that happen. Brian's come up with a little sketch on his own too, to include some core boring areas, make sure we have subsurface of the roadway accounted for, make sure we don't have to ask for anything else on that end. I don't think I missed anything, Brian, but what we wanted to do was have the board hear that we've been requested or asked for a turn back of the roadway, see what your thoughts were, so we know if we're headed in the right direction. I miss anything?
No, I mean, that's it. We did identify, based on the existing conditions, we identified some swale work and the reference to the under drain is due to the existing homes on the south side. I'm sorry, the east side of Cedar Brook. Between the existing homes and the existing trees, virtually impossible to get a swale or any kind of substantive storm sewer system put in there. We want to make sure that when this section of Cedar Brook gets milled and overlaid, that we don't create any drainage issues for the residents. There will be a swale installed. Basically, it'll be replacing what was there before on the west side by the cemetery. And basically, to Bruce's point, we're going to have them do 5 core borings of the road itself to ensure that the road paving section as it exists is up to township standards. If it is, great. If it's not, that's going to be a different discussion, certainly. But basically, take the exhibit that the applicants had prepared, add the core boring areas to it, detail specifically what we're looking for, kind of confirm some of the things that they're suggesting relative to our discussion, and they're going to put cost estimate together to see what it would cost them to do the work to our standards and go from there. So yeah, it's a very unique situation. But our hands are sort of forced because of the town center project. I mean, as Bruce said, PennDOT doesn't want one of their roads that doesn't connect to another PennDOT road. It's got to go through a township road and or a private road first. It's just kind of weird. So on one hand, it's an opportunity to get some roadway improvements on somebody else's dime, but we want to make sure that it's done, to our satisfaction. So we're going to be getting that correspondence out in the next day or so. We'll see what we hear back from them and go from there. But to Bruce's point, this is something that the township has to actually request. It's a bizarre process, but we have to request PennDOT to give the road back to the township. Even though if the town center project didn't happen, we probably wouldn't be in this position. So it's kind of weird. But again, trying to look at big picture and silver lining kind of thing, it will be up to township standards if this whole thing moves forward.
Is it going to include new wearing coat?
Yes, it would be a mill and overlay of the road, more or less from where the Guardian overlay stopped to the very end, including some base repair, including the drainage improvements that we talked about. Yeah.
And I would want to know too, just so the board's aware, right? The part of the turnback means the township then is responsible for this roadway forever. So you are adding an infrastructure component and its legacy costs. Just want to make sure that, everybody understands that component of this too. So I found it interesting while we were walking the road that day. One of the residents was sitting on their porch and they were asking what we were doing. I said, hey, we're looking at the road for roadway improvements. And they said, you're not going to connect the road to the other side, like under 78 or anything. We don't want any more traffic to come from that direction. And I said, we are definitely not connecting the road to the other side of Cedarbrook. So they definitely had concerns about increased traffic on the road. We're hoping that they weren't going to see that. So that was some feedback we heard in the field.
Okay, any questions? Yes, Mike.
I just want to make you guys aware that in my previous work back in the 90s, there was a diner right there, and LCA had quite a few problems with the well systems along that section of the road. There are abandoned wells and other wells that are in and around there, and some of them were contaminated. I don't know where the contamination exactly came from, but I remember it was a real big issue when they put in the bypass there. And if you remember, there was a diner right there, and of course it got moved, and they purposely put the basin and other things around those wellheads that are along Cedarbrook. So, be cautious, see where all those wellheads are before you adopt the road. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Any other questions? Okay. Mr. Vital, anything further?
Oh, unless there's questions for me, I think I've taken up everybody's time and people are tired of listening to me anyway. So unless there's other questions on things that we have outstanding.
Are there any department reports? Is there any public comment on agenda topics? Yep, come back up, Mike. You've reached your quota for the quarter, though. Just understand, you can come back in October.
I'm busy somewhere else, right, Dave? Uh, One of the things that I wanted to bring up that wasn't clear at your board meeting on Thursday, last Thursday, was the toters. I know you're having some conversation on how to handle those. In Ancient Oaks West, and I'm sure in the other township, townhouse complex, 96-gallon toters are just, they're way too big. I mean, there's no place to store them. I have no place on my front porch to even put them out there. I've measured them out and they're like 3 foot by almost 3 foot on the 96-gallon toters. My wife is handicap accessible. We have a handicap ramp coming up into the house. And there's basically no place for us to put these toters. Now, right now I have two 32-gallon toters, one for the solid waste and one for the recycling. They work extremely well putting it up against the houses. The problem in Ancient Oaks West is we have no curbs, we have no sidewalks. Half the people out there just leave their toters out along the road. Come winter season, you put a 96-gallon toter out there, you're gonna have some plow issues with the plows hitting them, because people are not gonna move them. They're just not gonna drag those things all the way back up to their front porch. And half of them have stoops and steps in there that are, 18 inches high. There's no way they're gonna be able to move those. We don't have garages and stuff. So what I'm asking is the board to please consider leaving the 65-gallon toters out there and giving the option of people who don't really use that much solid waste, like my wife and I. We barely even fill up the solid waste recycling one. We do a real good job of filling up the 32-gallon one, but a 64 would be plenty for a solid waste for the townhouses, in my opinion. If people want a bigger 96 for throwing their garbage in there, because I know the purpose of it is to keep from placing bags out on there.
That's not the purpose, Mike. There is only pickup by the truck now. You can't put anything outside. It will not be picked up.
I understand that, and that's why you're going to the 96-gallon to accommodate those people who threw bags out there. I would just like to have the option of going to a smaller can and so that at least the seniors can move them a little bit easier, and those people in the townhouses. The current recycling, I'm assuming that everything will still go in 2 cans.
Correct.
Because that wasn't real clear on the website as well. The 32-gallon, actually the recycling one should be the 64, because I do a real good job of recycling, but I'd like to see the solid waste down to 32. I just don't generate a lot of solid waste anymore. That's not.
And unfortunately, the parameters of the contracts we were given, there wasn't the option. It was going to be one. We were pretty much predetermined what we were going to have. So even the recycling toters that when we first did those, there were 2 options. When the smaller ones break, they'll be replaced with a larger one. There's not even an option for a smaller one of those in the future.
So if I keep my 32-gallon recycling toter going,
That's fine.
that's fine.
That's fine until it needs to be replaced. Then it'll be replaced with a 64.
I appreciate that option. That's a good option, because I'll baby that thing until it falls. The 64, the other one I have is a 32-gallon that they're able to put on the machine and put it up.
Sure.
But I'm assuming that's the one that's going to be replaced by the 96.
Correct.
Can
And
you give us an option of at least going down to the 64 in the townhouses?
there isn't an option. As a matter of fact, we're rewriting the ordinance because right now you're not technically allowed to display garbage cans outside of your house. And we have to rewrite the ordinance because we know that it's a burden on certain areas.
I mean, I understand that, because you would say you can't place them out there prior to 36 hours before pickup or something like that, or 24
I
hours.
think it's actually shorter than that. Yeah.
So I understand that, but it's going to be a real problem, because the people in Ancient Oaks West are not going to be able to move those toters readily in the wintertime.
Yeah, we're aware of that. It's something we're going to continue to try to work with Waste Management on as the contract moves forward. The one I'd say positive compared to the previous contracts is after 3 years, we have the right to get out of it or change parameters. They don't have that right anymore. They have to stick to it for 5 years. So there's going to be a lot of things that are going to come up in the first 2 years that we're going to have to address. Unfortunately, the way the market is right now, we had very, very little option as to what we could take from, we pretty much had to take what we were offered. And luckily we at least had 2 people, and our costs are less than most of the townships around us. But I think that's something that's going to come up as we move forward, as how can we make this more customizable to fit everybody?
I'm just thinking of I understand trash inflation and the cost going up, and I'm willing to pay that, but to maneuver a 96-gallon toter for a senior citizen is very difficult, especially during the winter when we don't have sidewalks, we don't have garages, we don't have curbs. Those things are just going to be a nightmare.
I completely agree with you.
And that's something that a 64-gallon seems to everybody can handle that, all right, in H and Oaks West. But Lord help you when the first plows come down and they start hitting those like a parade down there. 'Cause I see it
Understand.
happening.
Understand, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anything else, Mr. Vital? All right, I just wanted to say, I believe, Nate, is this your last meeting with us?
Oh, it's his last workshop.
It's my last
workshop.
Oh, you'll be here in August.
Well, we're gonna remote him. He doesn't have, we're gonna remote.
All right, well,
Only if it's absolutely, I might be driving.
He might be.
all right, so most likely this is Nate's last meeting with the Board of Commissioners, as Nate will be leaving us at the start of August. And I just want to take a moment, in my time on this board, we've been blessed with 2 very good planners who've made amazing and important improvements in everything, the way things are planned in this town. Nate has provided an unbelievable service to the residents of this community, and most of them would never know who Nate is. So Nate, I want to thank you for everything you've given to us in your role. We wish you the best in your future endeavors, and that you will certainly be missed. So thank you very much for everything you've given to us.
I appreciate that. I want to make it clear that it's been an absolute privilege serving you all and serving the residents of this township, and it's been a pleasure as well. It has been a joy to get up every day and come to work here. It's very difficult to leave, but it's also, we're doing it for the right decision for our family, but I want to make it clear how lucky I've been to be here.
Well, I'll say the same back. We've been very lucky. So good luck with everything.
Thank you.
All right. There may be things you can't bring with you to your new residence. I know you're a Northeast kind of guy, so you may have to change your wardrobe, I think, but that's okay. All right. And with that, we are, oh, go ahead.
Where are you moving?
Far south as you can go, Maury.
And stay in the country.
And stay in the country.
All right. So with that, we are adjourned. Oh, boy.